I think the most important thing that anybody can do in regards of failure, because they're unavoidable, failures are unavoidable and they are absolutely necessary to, is to reframe how you feel about failure. Don't see it as something bad, but see it as you made progress in your learning, So don't forget the lesson, whatever happened to you or whatever you overdid, that it was a stepping stone towards what's next for you. And then Rod Cleve always calls it the seminars, where you had these missteps in your life, and then you're looking back and say, like, man, that was the most boneheaded thing that I've ever done in my life. But at that time, you put your best foot forward, and you needed to learn that lesson in order to reach that next plateau where you have a better perspective to do it better, right? But well,
All right. Can you hear me good now?
yes.
And here we are. Hey, Bjorn, thanks a lot, man, for this. I've been
Thanks for
looking
having
for it
me.
for quite a while, and we have here today Bjorn. Help me with your last name. It's Meisner.
Meisner, yeah, European spelling, or not spelling, pronunciation,
Oh,
Eisi.
okay. I got it then. So you're a serial entrepreneur, real estate investor. You are doing coaching now as your business. How the year has been going for you so far? Has been treating you, and what have you been doing these days? Tell me.
So yeah, I have been pretty successful with my photography ventures here over the years, and last year closed that off because I just wanted to have something that is bigger, more scalable, where I leave a bigger legacy. Finding myself very often in the request for advice, and so I said, like, let's hone my skills a little bit there. So at this point, I'm just like structuring my deliverables and my courses, started with the coaching, and it's going very, very well. I'm very excited for it.
Courses. Well, I know you. I know you never stop. You told me before that when we met, we were at the Rod Cleave's seminar, and you also did Tony Robbins for quite a while. What courses
Correct.
have you been doing? Tell me more about that.
Oh my goodness! Over the years, one of the things that I'm really committed to is learning, right? So I will probably never be done acquiring knowledge and refining what I know and what is true and what is valuable and what aligns with my values and beliefs. Tony Robbins has been a pretty big hit for me. That was right after the pandemic. I signed up for his platinum partnership for an entire year, so I participated in all the life mastery, business mastery, the financial trip. I did multiple Unleash the Power Within. I did 2 times Date with Destiny, got coaching there, leadership training. It was amazing. It was a fantastic year. And so once that you're starting to be in that environment, of course, you're making friends and you getting to know other speakers, and you just like branch out and learning from them as well, signing up for their courses, for their coaching. So the last 5 years have been pretty intense in regards of understanding how the brain works, how leadership works, making connections, and yeah, pretty much like letting that all flow into your day-to-day life as well as the business.
Oh, I see then now why you are kind of going to the coaching side. You've been getting a lot of networking, a lot of background on that. That sounds amazing.
It's really, in the beginning, the inspiration was, of course, to become a better self, right? But as you know, I have a 13-year-old son, and he needs some coaching, right? I mean, you're just like you're talking to somebody. Uh, uh, you're raising a man, right? And you got to prepare him for the world out there, and say, like, okay, what do you got in regards of insights and guidance without taking too much freedoms away? Let him be and let him become who he really is meant to be, but at the same time also avoiding the pitfalls and laying out some ground rules and saying, like, this is how life works, it's what's out there. And just a language in regards of the leadership that came from Tony Robbins. Another big guy that I've been in touch with is John Maxwell, was probably the authority in regards of leadership. And it helps tremendously just like to have the conversation with him at bedtime, and then of course with friends too. And you're just like, it's so transferable to any kind of human being, what you're learning in regards of leadership, because as you know, coaching, leadership, influencing, sales, in the big scope of things, is all the same thing, right? It's just like really taking on responsibilities and solving problems for other people. And Let's be brief about it. I just love it.
Yeah, and I get it. Everything is just psychology, right? That's what you're saying. Either the coaching and the sales, everything. It's how we normally react to those things.
It's, I think, like, I did a little bit of classwork on being a man and those kind of things too. And then very often that's an interesting conversation because dealing with emotions is taught to guys different than it is to women, right? And so guys can need all the help that we can get. So I listen very, very carefully, especially just
True.
like, especially when it comes to my son, where I say like, okay, here's a boy, and I know he has emotions, and I want him to be able to communicate them and feel them, and being aware of them and be able to discuss them without feeling weak, right? And so that's a very, very important conversation that we're having all the time. But you're absolutely right when you're dealing with adults, and they're in a situation of want to feel safe, don't want to feel fear, feeling connected, not connected, all these kind of things. You need to be very, very observant in regards of saying like, okay, do you at the moment when you are facing with a challenge, do I buy this product? Do I want to participate in that experience? Is this a good partner for me? All these kind of questions, right? Do you deal with the fear of this, what this may become, or do you really process this in a way and say like, I really want this, I take on the challenge, I know that the fear is there, but I'll do it anyway because I want to see what comes out of it, right? And so in most cases this is the right path for people to really just like broaden their horizon and stretch themselves a little bit more and becoming more of who they really meant to be.
Yeah, and I feel you. I also have a 15-year-old son. I try to be my best for him to give the best examples, and I see that you were mentioning that you're trying to do the same.
Yes.
How do you come by? You mentioned about your values. How do you come by bringing your values to your son? How there's any
It
strategy? How do you do that? Because I'm struggling here as well.
So, as you know, I have been a photographer, right? And a lot of the photography that I've been doing over the last 8 years was family portraits and children portraits. And so, a lot of conversation was together with the families and about childhood and the observation of what's really going on there. And one of the sentences that I probably said like 20 times a day is, our kids, they never listen, but they will always watch. And I think like it is so important when you're a parent to be a good role model. So do the right things and have the integrity of your word, right? You say like, I'm going to do this, and then I'm doing this. If you tell somebody on the telephone, hey, buddy, I'm working out every single day, and my son sees that I'm sleeping in every day, he knows I'm a liar, right? So you got to be very, very careful. Somebody's watching, and you just got to be a better self, right?
Well, that makes total sense. I've been a triathlete for the past 14 years. He, not that he's that much into it, but I can see that somehow sometimes when he's doing some kind of physical activity, he he had the example or he has the example, and also in terms of business, I'm telling him all the time that what I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I know it's too much for him, but yeah, he's absorbing, he's learning. Until the other day he came to me and said, hey, I want to start this drop shipping business. And I said, what do you know about it? But anyway, it didn't go through, but I allowed him to test. Okay, do a test run, I'm here for you. And we chatted a bit, but what you say there, it's really true. The role, being the role model and showing the integrity part. Yeah.
And just like showcasing some courage there too, say like living more in a space of abundance rather than scarcity, more in a space of courage and fear, more in a space like of experimentation instead of playing it safe. And so that gives them the permission to do this too, because I always say this, fail at things, try so hard that like you probably fail, but then at least you know how far you can go. And that's not always good advice when it comes to sports because you can overstretch yourself. But in the big scope of things, he's a young person, and I think like I rather have him failing in a safe environment where you can provide some coaching and say like, hey, what was good about this? What have you learned? What are you going to do better the next time, or will this not be your thing going forward? So you can just like really cognitively process the entire experience rather than feeling like, well, I've failed kind of like in silence on my own, and I'm processing on my own, and I develop self-talk that is just like not very beneficial and favorable for the pursuits that you want to drive in your life, so I just like encourage him quite a lot to do different things, experiment with things. And sure enough, the entire year he was talking about, entire school year he was talking about, like he has this board game in his mind that he wanted to develop, but he's a grade A student, so he was like so particular about like getting his A's, and he was just like doing homework. So he was chunking his work and saying like this board game has to wait. First day out of school, he was just like starting to just like getting all this cardboard and papers and printers and pens and he just like developed all these little dollar bills and pins and the board itself and the questionnaires, and he just like developed something similar to Monopoly, and within a week's time he had this whole thing put together, the prototype if you want. So and we played it with a family, and sure it had some flaws, but he went full in. He's just like, I want to do this and I'm gonna do it when the time is right.
All right, there's a business there. Send me one. I'm intrigued now.
Yeah. It's seriously, I'm pretty excited. I mean, when you saw the first time Mr. Beast, you thought too he would be a YouTuber, and we did some YouTube videos. He has his own channel. We didn't pursue it too much further, but he was excited about this too. So he's trying things, and I got to tell you this. So I'm just like a dad once here, right? Parker's my only child, and I feel like for us grown-ups, this gives us a great opportunity to just like rediscover life again, because you have to explain everything. Why are there seasons? Why are some animals eating other animals? What do the bees and the flowers do? All that good stuff, right? And so you're discovering the beauty of things. You're finding the uniqueness and the simplicity as something very, very valuable, and something to admire and be thankful for, which in younger years you probably just like pass by and just like go through the seasons because you're on your way to do something else, right? You're going to the clubs, to your education, seeing your girlfriend, whatever, and you do not see kind of like, oh my God, look at those crab apple trees blooming everywhere, and then, well, you shoving around a little guy, and then you just like, look at this and look at this, right? And then I feel like it brings a lot of joy to your life and a rediscovery of what is so beautiful in this world. And so I really, really cherish this time. It's a favorite season of my life.
Wow. Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah. Wow, it's wonderful. And
So you
that's
said you have a 15-year-old. Do you have another son, or you have more than one child?
yeah, I have a daughter. She's 3, will turn 4 next September.
Okay.
And that's a totally different ball game. Not because it's a girl, but she's totally different from him. Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see the differences and how they interact. Wow.
It's yeah, I've seen this quite a lot. As I said, it was a photo studio. You see all kinds of different setups, and very often you have the firstborn being very compliant because the parents have a little bit more helicopter and making sure that everything is aligned and structured, and they're very often the good students climbing the ladder in corporate life. And then you have the nextborns who are a little bit more of independent, fighting for the attention, doing what they want. They get a little bit more liberty, and they have a tendency to be more entrepreneurial down the road too.
Yeah, yeah. But you mentioned something there that okay, we thought that there's a big difference from them between them. I think. Uh, well, the math. I lost the math now, but let's say 12 years,
Yeah,
and we thought okay, that's gonna be kind of easy. But sometimes, no, because I think he had 12 years all by himself, and now there is someone else there. So it's been a learning curve. I I can tell you that for him
yeah.
and for us.
Oh, for everybody. I mean, relationships are kind of like always creating the dynamics where it gets a little bit more challenging, and you gotta, to the point that I made earlier, you gotta learn how to deal with your emotions, right?
Oh yeah,
And that's pretty
yeah,
much expected to say like, okay, if you're not always number one, and you gotta share your toys and you do not get all the attention, that's life.
and that's in terms of emotions. That's something that we try to teach him, not to withhold his emotions, but show that he's frustrated because sometimes he wants to please us. There was some time that he wants to please us, and we said, no, no, no. Look, you have to communicate. You have to tell us how you're feeling. So
Yeah.
he's more because he's more introspective. Then that's a kind of work that we had to do with him. So yeah.
Yeah, I find I get a lot of inspiration from Stoicism, when it comes to how to deal with emotions, because there too you have them, but you also just like learn how to manage them in many, many regards. And first of all, not making too much of it if somebody says something about you, because you are yourself and you know who you are, and you have certain feelings about why you are there. So outside sources should not influence you that much. So that helps you quite a lot to deal with rejections in life and other aspects too. The other thing about emotions too is, as you know, discipline is freedom, right? I mean, if you're doing your thing and you do it consistently, you have healthy habits and do it every single day, like you're going every single day to the gym at a certain time and you just go, and even if you do not feel like it, or even if you get to bed late last night, or you couldn't sleep the night before, if you say like, hey, at 6 o'clock I'm at the gym, you're at 6 o'clock at the gym and you see results because you consistently do this. And that is exactly what discipline means. You go no matter how you feel. You already made that commitment to you the day before, and then say like, I am Bjorn. I'm the kind of person who goes at 6 o'clock to the gym every single day, and then when 6 o'clock comes, there's no snooze button nearby where it's saying like, today I changed my mind because I feel different about it. And so I'm very, very careful about like letting him know that that is kind of like emotional management too, that is very, very important to succeed in life. Because
Wow.
that is kind of like the effort that most people are not willing to go for, right? Say like, I put
Yeah.
myself in this discomfort because it's
Yeah.
so much easier to say like, hey, you know what? At guests over, I want to have a glass of wine, and then I'm tired, and the next morning I'm feeling like that I'm sleeping in. That's choices, right? And we are our choices.
Wow. I really loved, and I'm trying to remember what you just said here. Discipline is freedom. Wow, I like that. Discipline,
Hundred
consistency. I can
percent,
totally relate to that as well. Wow.
100%. The when you're really thinking about the the person that we're becoming, our identity is probably the most beautiful thing that you craft in your entire life, right? The person that we're becoming. And you're only becoming what you consistently do, right? What you're known
Yeah.
for. For the longest time, I was a photographer because I was photographing every single day, and then for many, many years, I'm a business owner now. So I'm a business owner. I'm known for that. I'm known as a dad because I show up as a dad. And so, um, we do these kind of things because we value them and because we're having certain beliefs around them. And when we do them very, very often, our brain helps us by creating habits, because we do them so often that we're just like, do not have to think about it anymore. It just like happens automatically. And so going from discipline towards habits and basically automation to create your identity and then to reinforce your beliefs and values is just like such an important part of our awareness, to just like really observing yourself and say like, how can I do better here? Why did I not accomplish too much today? Why am I not productive? And really being self-insightful about like, maybe I created some bad habits for myself. Maybe I have some limiting beliefs here, right?
Yeah, right, right. And that brings me to one another thing that you said about growth, and I have a segue question about growth here, because
Yes,
you strike me as a very adaptable and consistent when you're pursuing your goals. That's what from our conversation. That's the feeling I got. So, how's your approach in terms of motivation, mindset, and dealing with all the setbacks that because not everything is straight line to success, right? So when dealing with setbacks and these different enterprises that you pursue, um, how do you build this momentum? How do you overcome those challenges?
so part of it is what I mentioned earlier, the discipline. So the decision is already made a long time ago. If I say like, I'm going into this business and these are the steps that it takes, and it will take months and it will take failures and so on, that you just say like, I am undeterred. I do not need to be motivated because this is my path and I know failures will come. So you just stick with the program, you stick with the consistency. So that's really, really important. I do make sure that I am extremely healthy and balanced, not just like with my sports, my sleep patterns, but also drinking enough water and eating very, very healthy and regularly, and eating stuff that is just like not slowing me down. So I'm just like not eating anything where I'm, after my lunch, for example, feel tired. I'm eating gluten free, right? I'm pretty reserved in regards of my alcohol consumption. I never drink pop. I'm not having sugary stuff. I do not eat processed foods, right? And so part of part of all of that is really just like to keep a very, very healthy mind, and activate my body early in the morning. So I choose to work out in the morning for the most part. Um, that's another thing, to just like stay very, very balanced. And so motivation is not needed that much. Of course, I am coached too by other people. So every once in a while, I got to be reminded of, hey, Bjorn, you said this, how can we do this better? Why did this not function this last week? And then so you get some feedback. And I think like it's really, really important, even if you're just like completely all over the place in regards of leadership and growth and mindset and the things that you just mentioned. Sometimes you do not see the forest because of all the trees, right? Because it's just like so much, and you're just like in the middle of it, and in the trenches, and you need to have somebody remind you, all right, so this is what we planned out to do last week, and so a coach can help you with that. So that's a good part of the conversation. The other thing that is really important is to keep a circle of good friends. So I do not have a big circle of friends, but I have a circle of very good friends, and when we're getting on the telephone and we're talking about shop, we're talking about our relationships, with our significant others or girlfriends, as a relationship with our kids, it's going deep pretty quickly. And I think that is very, very important to have that environment.
Nice. In terms of motivation, you mean that motivation comes easily when you have the good habits, consistency, and everything else. That's what you're saying.
Yes, I think like it's you have some anchor points in regards of the goal setting too. It's like, I want to accomplish this week. I want to accomplish this today. I need to do this in order to get there, right? And so the carrot is always dangling there. Um, and in all honesty, here I do read quite a lot as well, and I listen to motivational content here when I'm rowing, for my warm up at the gym, and those kind of things. So I'm exposed to a lot of motivational content. And it's not always motivational, but it's in the self-development world. Sometimes it's about productivity, sometimes it's about like how the mind works. But my habits, my choices, my activities are always top of mind. I try to be as conscious as possible about them.
All right. And the friends keep you grounded.
That's the reason why I want to have good friends, right? Somebody who can tell me, buddy, that's not you. You really screwed this up. You better go back and apologize, or you better go back and double up on this thing, or you shouldn't have done that. And so I think like that makes for a good friendship. When you just like can tell somebody face to face, like, hey, this is not right. This is not aligned with your goals. At least not what I know about you or what you told me about your goals. And I think that makes for a fantastic friendship when you can go that way, because the more successful you get in life, the more yes man you have around you, right? Because you accomplish, people still nodding their heads, they want to have advice, and say like, that's probably the way then, right? And this is all good. And quite honestly, this is the part where you no longer grow. And I cannot have that too much around me, right? I do like to be challenged and say like, hey, how can we do this better? I want to put a quick word on growth here in too, because that topic came up 2 or 3 times here during this conversation. That's one big thing that I learned from Tony Robbins, because we're just like, especially here in America, we're thinking so much about happiness. What's happiness, right? A lot of people think happiness comes from pleasure. And you're looking at this, and I have some people who did pretty well financially in their lives, and they're constantly pleasuring themselves with fine dining and traveling and so on. And to be quite honest, after a while, they get bored. Just like God, if I see one more castle in Europe, I might as well just like shoot myself. Just like not inspired anymore. And so pleasure is not really happiness. I think happiness, and that's kind of like the definition that Tony Robbins gave to me. Happiness is really growth, and that means like that you're experiencing yourself in a better scenario than you were yesterday. Every single day, you're just like making some kind of progress, whether it's you learn something, your muscles are growing, you're feeling healthier, you did something great for your family, you made more money, whatever it is, when that stagnates or even goes backwards, and so like it's not like it used to be anymore, that's when you encounter unhappiness. And you got to counteract towards that and say, like, where am I not growing right now anymore? How can I find the gratefulness towards what is in my life right now that has momentum?
Yeah, yeah. My wife taught me about happiness. To her, happiness is a state of being. It's you
Yeah,
being enough. It's not like you pursue something so you can be happy. No, you must be happy, then you can pursue things. So it's a
very
great way
true.
of seeing.
It's a choice too. It's a choice too. Just like the energy that you bring to any kind of project that you have, whether
Yeah,
that's your relationships, your health, or your sports, or your career.
yeah, indeed. And through all of your transformations, do you have any limiting beliefs?
Too many to admit here. I'm still so. One of the things I mentioned in the beginning here, I love to learn, and there's a big reason to learn too. I mean, we all have limiting beliefs to a certain degree. I believe even Tony Robbins has them, even though it might not show all that much. But underneath your actions, very often it shows like where you're hesitant because you have certain patterns that you adopted either from your childhood or from society or from recent events, from other experiences, and you have some cleanup to do every once in a while. And ask yourself, this is how could this be an opportunity, and why do I not pursue this? Why don't you talk to that beautiful woman? Why don't you just take that trip? Why don't you just start that business? Why don't you invest in these things, right? And then so you'll find yourself more often than not in that there's some fear, some hesitancy there, and that is informed. I recently read a book that the only two inherent fears that we have as human beings, the fears that we're born with, are the fear of falling, because as a little baby you would not survive if you wouldn't have that fear. So this right away, is that when you are in a height, you're not going down there. So the falling thing is just like a thing that is naturally already there. That is dangerous. And the other thing is loud noises, that initially startle you. When you hear loud noise as a baby, you're fearful. Everything else is learned. Everything else is learned, and sometimes it's learned. Yeah, as I say, a lot of things we learn actually through our parents. People say often it's our DNA. It's not so much the DNA. It's really just like the habits and the behaviors that you're seeing in your forming years that make up basically a mindset about like, this is not for me. I probably shouldn't be doing this. This is scary. This is not safe.
Okay,
And then and then
but
on the opposite, in that same book here, they would also mention, I don't know whether you know Andrew Huberman. He's a professor, psychologist, and he's talking a lot about how our brain works. And there's a part of our brain actually that can be trained. God, HMCC, I think it's an abbreviation for a longer thing. What I'm saying here is that part of the brain basically rewards you when you're taking courage. It just like builds that muscle to take courage, to do difficult things in your life, and you're more prone to do more difficult things in your life. So very often you hear Tony Robbins again, and Wim Hof from the Netherlands with the cold bath, the cold plunges.
yeah.
Do those early in the morning. Do a really difficult thing that is very uncomfortable, and your brain is trained to just say, like, I survived that. I can do this. I'm the kind of person who is able to do difficult things, and you're more prone to do more difficult things in your life. In other words, you're just like really a disciplined person who is comfortable with discomfort.
So it's a muscle. Okay, that's
You can
interesting.
train that. You can just like there's some people who say like, do one more thing than it's comfortable. Maybe you a lot on the telephone and say like, okay, during this hour I need to make 60 calls, and you say like, all right, I've been doing this now for a whole week. Maybe beginning today we're doing 70 calls, no matter whether 60 minutes are up or I need to take 65 minutes. And just so you have that growth and doing the challenge and do something that is a little bit uncomfortable, just like
Oh,
inching in little by little.
that's interesting.
Mhm.
Oh, all right. I like it. Good.
it's important to
I
it's important to measure things, right? I mean, the numbers never lie, and if you can go in and just say, like, well, making progress, and I ran my mile now at a better time than yesterday and the week beforehand, you see progress, and you just like know you're doing the good thing, and then you can just like say, like, on day 4 or 5, and say, like, gosh, you know what? I progressively went better today. I'm going for this time because it will be better again, right? And you just like keep looking at the watch, and what do I need to do in order to be there?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. When doing some endurance races that I used to do, I used to push myself, and I liked and I liked the challenge, but I didn't know that, and I was always attracted to that, but I didn't know that idea and that pushing yourself, it's kind of a muscle, and you could train that. That's really interesting.
It brings a lot of joy when you have that behind you and say, like, well, I have done that now. That's on my record. Nobody can take that away from me anymore, right?
Yeah, indeed, indeed. When you can brag about it because you're proud of yourself. Indeed. Yeah.
This is especially when it comes to high performance sports, as professionals, Olympian athletes. Uh, Most of the work is really done in the shadows, right? We're just like the hours of repetitions in the training room, in the dark, the early mornings, working with a coach and so on. Once that you're on the big stage, you're just like doing your thing because you know what you're doing, right? It is just like it has been done many, many times before, and you're just like giving that little extra there to breaking maybe a personal record or something like this. But you come in well prepared into all of this, and so for most of us, when we're reaching that exceptional execution of our thing, our talent, our skill, whatever we're working on, right? We're reaching a flow state. We're just like completely happy, right? We're just like, we're not even thinking about doing our thing anymore. We're in our element.
Yeah. When you are in the zone, oh, that's
Yeah.
I experienced that. That's amazing, man. When you're in the
Did you see the
zone.
F1? Did you see the F1 movie with Brad Pitt?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. So I don't want to give too much away, but it gets a little bit into that whole thing too. Highly recommend it. I love the movie. I knew I would, so I went to the movie theater all by myself, by the way, because I really did not want to have anybody distracting me and be really kind of like in it. And no, it was a fantastic flick.
Total immersion. I like it. Okay. And what's your relationship between failure, restart, and success? Because it's a cycle when we want to achieve things. How's your relationship with that?
I think the most important thing that anybody can do in regards of failure, because they're unavoidable, failures are unavoidable and they are absolutely necessary to, is to reframe how you feel about failure. Don't see it as something bad, but see it as you made progress in your learning, So don't forget the lesson, whatever happened to you or whatever you overdid, that it was a stepping stone towards what's next for you. And Rod Cleve always calls it the seminars, where you had these missteps in your life, and then you're looking back and say, like, man, that was the most boneheaded thing that I've ever done in my life. But at that time, you put your best foot forward, and you needed to learn that lesson in order to reach that next plateau where you have a better perspective to do it better, right? And so failure is really something that you need to put in perspective of saying, like, that's your path.
Yeah, well, what I personally, okay, in terms of that, I'm taking every lesson, that all the mistakes I've done, and I'm doing totally different now on the new business that I'm pursuing. And yeah, and I am seeing different results, which is expected, right? You do different, so you get different results. But one thing that I am still struggling to think is, yeah, we fail, but when do we consider, okay, now I have to move, pivot, or whatever? So you see what I mean here. When it is pursuing the same idea, smart or dumb enough, when do you think we should move focus?
Let me just ask that question back again. So what you're saying is, when you failed so often that you feel like this is probably not the right thing to do anymore, when that point comes,
Yeah,
it
kind of that.
it
Yes.
it depends
Bec-
a little bit on the situation. So I mean, it's just like some things, even like businesses, have a shelf life too, right? And you say like, okay, you spend all the marketing dollars and it worked in 2010, but it doesn't work in 2020, and you spend more than you ever spent on the marketing, but the clients do not come in, the profit margins are lesser, behavior has changed, and you got to stop doing this, because it just doesn't bring the results anymore, and you're basically out of resources. Um, and I think like that's a good milestone for you to say like, do I have any more ideas on how to do this better, or am I just like doing the same thing over and over again and failing, right? Um, that will be the point of departure where just say like, okay, this is probably over now. This is not a good business. It's not a good habit anymore. And sometimes you get a slap in the face too, especially when you're aging too. I mean, I'm age 54 right now, and I was 2 days ago for the first time since 15 years on water skiers because my son is learning this with his grandfather, and I said like, I want to try it again, and took me 5 seconds. Got out of the water. I'm pretty strong, training pretty hard right now. Got out of the water okay, but strained my leg pretty bad. I think I tore a tendon. I didn't go to the doctor, so I'm just like limping around here right now, and I'm just like considering, yeah, probably I do want to water ski again, but I know like on that Sunday I overdid it, so maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. So that would be an example where you say like, okay, you learned your lesson, and maybe it's time to move on, But at the same time, my son started karate 4 years ago. I wanted him always to just like because he's forecasted to be 6'8" when he's a grown up. I said like, you better learn how to control your limbs early on. So you go into martial arts, yoga, any of these kind of things where you're working with your limbs and learning to be in your body. And so he loved karate so much, and I'm really not a sports spectator at all. I hate sitting in the sidelines and watching a game. It's just like a waste of time to me personally. Sorry, but so I was for 2 years I watching him doing karate, and I've been always very imbalanced and not very agile and then graceful in my movements, and doing most of my things with power and speed. And so after 2 years, I decided I signed up for karate, and I'm the oldest guy in the club there. I mean, all these teenagers were quite quicker than I am, and then quite more advanced in form. And then I'm starting at the white belt there, and then they're at black belt, sometimes multiple black belt levels, and we're going into sparring. And yeah, you get basically the doo-doo kicked out of you, and you got to be okay with that. And but what am I in now? I'm I think like 18 months in, still loving it, and I will keep doing it, as long as I can, because I'm feeling like it's a good challenge. I do not need to be good at it. I'm just like loving that I'm growing with it, and so that's the other side of that. You're never too old to start something new, and you're never too far along to create something completely different. We have this beautiful thing. It's called neuroplasticity, that our mind can completely change. It doesn't happen overnight, but you can develop habits, and doing your repetitions and the affirmations and the exercises around it to completely change who you are. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, limiting beliefs, right? If you believe in yourself, you can do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. And well, what are your plans? What's coming next? What are you thinking?
So the big plans right now is a couple of different things. You mentioned I'm in the real estate business here, so I'm just like still learning there too. I'm pretty active here in the community in that regard. So I'm doing lease purchases for the most part. You and I met when we talked about multifamily deals and so on. That's a little bit on the back burner for me here for this coming year. But then the coaching business, that's in development. It's probably ready to launch here relatively soon. So I'm just like working on the details of the marketing and structuring the program, and then all those kind of things.
Great, awesome. Can't wait to hear more about it. I will keep keep an ear on it. Definitely. And when do you think you will launch this? By the end of the year?
No, probably earlier here. So I'm starting to promote it a little bit already here and there. I'm writing on the course right at this point, and getting pretty familiar in regards of the marketing, the outreach that I need to do. There's a couple of variations that I'm learning about right at this point, where just like need to get my head around a little bit more in detail. I'm thinking like that by the end of the summer, I should be pretty much ready to launch.
Great. Okay.
It's kind of like a labor of love too, because when you're coming in, I've been a business owner since 25 years. My parents have been business owners. My grandfather was. And seeing all these little anecdotes and lessons that we've learned along the way, and just pairing that now with all these great speakers and coaches and mentors that I had over the years. Um, and just like seeing the progression to what it is doing in regards of how the family reacts, what my son is seeing, how peers performing in their businesses, and then there's sometimes the same business and there's a variety of results that they're bringing in. You just like observing, okay, why is this? What do certain people do different? And it's an inner game, really. And for me, being a participant, not just like in the business, but also helping other businesses now to see themselves more and excelling in who they can be. That's a wonderful thing. I'm super excited about it.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
And technology. I want to bring technology to the conversation because starting new business and this transformation era that we are facing now. Do you have concerns?
I have no. I don't have concerns. It's just like with everything, right? We have a innovation that comes into our life, and it threatens normality, right? And it's getting faster and bigger all the time right now. But I recently read an article that was actually mentioning that when we first saw cars on the road, there were protesters going in front of the cars, say like they are too dangerous, our children cannot play on the road, all these kind of things. Their concerns. The When in Germany, and I don't even know how long ago, when Gutenberg got the book printing press invented, right? And all the Bible writers and so on got so concerned about like how uh, blasphemic that is now that a machine would do such a job and everybody would be unemployed not doing this. Or when the computer came about, we said like we don't need paper anymore. Innovation in technology, solving problems, they're creating very often new problems, and those new problems create new jobs.
Yeah,
What happens is, we'll, as human beings, will be busy and will be learning. Overall, as societies, we evolve, and there's a lot of dehumanization due to technology in many many fields. But if you do it right, there's also more humanity, where it's like, okay, some of the work really a human shouldn't be doing anymore. A machine is better suited to do that. Use your smarts, use your spirit, use your artistry and so on to do more of that. And I think like the output of work that we're creating here in the decades to come will be just like more valuable in regards of being truly human and self-expressed, where AI cannot take over, where machine cannot take over. And so I'm actually loving that we're just still seeing people going out for dinner and then sitting at the table, having a glass of wine, going to an art show, being more self-expressed with their videos, and then with their photography and sculpturing and trying on acting and dancing and so on. I think like these kind of like things make us more human, because now we have the space to do all the things that we must do a little bit easier.
definitely. Totally agree. Yeah, adaptability. Yeah, it's just the way it goes. Yeah.
It's just like a chain. I mean, we're talking about the car, yeah, sure, you have increased accidents, but then you're inventing the what is it called here, the airbag, and then that takes care of some things, and then there's always something new. We're solving a new problem that creates a new problem. But we're so resourceful as human beings, and so much striving for making life easier and better and coming up with solutions. And sometimes those experiments fail, and that's okay too. But in the big scope of things, I mean, just like imagine that what we have in our pockets here, our cell phones, that's a stronger computer than what the crew had that went for the first time to the moon, right? And then you're thinking like, that's the time that we're living in, and we're participating in this. And that's kind of like giving us a lot of experiences that our parents didn't have, our grandparents didn't have, that 100 years ago nobody could even make up in their mind. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I think what also frightens people is because it's so fast. Now it's another transformation, but it's so fast. It's
Yeah.
happening every week, and I'm following that every week. There's something new in terms of AI and the things that can be done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely hard to keep track of it, and because after a while we do need to specialize, right? I mean, talking about children, I always love when like a 4 or 5 year old comes over and she says like, "I can be a ballerina, the president of the United States, and I want to be a world traveler, and I'm also a princess," and it's all on the same day, right? So there's a lot of possibilities, and as we're getting older, we're learning, okay, in order to be good at one of these things, you probably need to specialize and focus a little bit more on the one thing, and then you cannot be the other things after that. So we're learning these kind of things, and that's a beautiful thing. But for all of us, as we're being adults and being focused on the one thing that we think we're really good at, and also knowing that we can shift that for something else, but it's an alternation. It's not like this and that. Um,
Yeah.
it's just like it gives us a lot of possibilities. I feel like the most important thing is that we're flexible in not being so afraid of change, because our generation here, Gen X, uh, change has been a constant. There was never the, the patterns that our parents had was a job for 40 years at the same company with a safe retirement plan and
Yeah.
consistency and all these kind of things. They were not the truth for our lives anymore, even less so for millennials now. And but for us, it was the first generation that actually had to deal with this. And so yeah, that pokes a little bit at you, but you wear thicker skin, and that just like, hey, you cannot just like rest on your laurels. You just got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and dealing with change and really embrace it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Yeah. And I expect no other result than wow, we'll be able to do amazing things. Yeah, honestly.
See, the big part of all of that narrative is too, sometimes things do not feel very good in the moment. And you're
Yeah,
looking
because
back,
it's uncomfortable, right?
yeah, and it's not what you wanted. I mean, expectations can make you be pretty miserable, right? If you say like, this is the outcome that I want to see guaranteed, and you do not reach that, then you're constantly looking at the gap of what you wanted and what you got, right? But when you're looking at where did you start out, and you're looking at the growth that you have experienced at that time, you have gratitude for that part, you're quite happier person, right? And so having that perspective and just say like, you know what, maybe I needed to learn that lesson, and it was a very, very good thing. And sometimes you have even a, a better perspective and say like, thank god I didn't go into that profession or marry that girl or see what have come of her, or didn't go to that country to live in, whatever it is, right? Because you have the longer view of this and say like 10 years later that would have been the last thing that you wanted to do. I mean, for me, I'm a very free spirited person, very visual, artistic, and so on, but when I was in college, all my friends, they were CPAs, tax advisors, and bankers, and I was hanging out with them. And when it was up to me to select my classes, guess what I chose? I said like, I do not really know what I want to do, so I chose accounting and finances and tax law, and I was miserable. I wasted 2 semesters on stuff like that until I figured out that's not you. That's your friends. Let them have it. I got to go into marketing and money and policy, things that have a little bit more of a psychological spin on things. And so I shifted gears a little bit during that time. But you know, for the most part of my teenage years and then into these college years, I was firmly convinced that my path would be to become a banker. Right? And thank God I didn't.
Wow. Well, it's I'm happy that you stay true to yourself, right?
I had to learn that. It was very disappointing at that time. All my friends were successful. I couldn't figure it out. You're looking at tax laws and say, like, why in the world would I want to know about this? And it's changing every quarter. So, no, thank God I was really bad at it and had to do something different.
Yeah. It's so I think that when we see ourselves being the kind of the person on the corner, right? And we are not fitting in and we don't know what to do. Um, it's kind of heavy on our mindset.
It's yeah. I think like one of the things that people are most afraid of when they're getting older is the sense of loneliness or not being loved, kind of like not being part of the tribe and being excluded, and so sometimes to be in the lone wolf doesn't feel all that comfortable, but sometimes that's what you have to do. That builds some strength, and teaches you how to take a stand for who you really are and what you really want to do, because nobody can tell you really what your wishes are, right? Very often people say like, what should I do with my life and what is a good profession? And nobody really has good advice for this, because nobody knows what's in your heart. And you need to be able to really become a good wanter, somebody who really wants something badly enough without any justification, not because you want it for this and this reason, but just because I look at it, I want to have that, I want to be that, I want to do that. And that's kind of like how you choose things like the instrument that you want to play for music, the sport that you're going into, the mate that you're spending your life with, and those kind of things, right? It's just like, I gotta love it. Nobody else is needing to give me any feedback or justification or explanation on it.
Yeah, and sometimes not even us we know what we want, right? Sometimes we need to get clarity on the things that we
Yeah.
want.
And very much. I mean, we talked a little bit about childhood here. I think good parenting is let your kids fail at many, many things, so that you just like learn the things that they like and that they don't like, right? To just say like, I have been there, and that's not my favorite. I do not really want to play piano, but I love the viola. I love to play soccer, but running is just like not for me, right? These kind of things. And so the earlier you can be exposed to all these different experiences and build a little bit of a attitude and belief about yourself, and say like, I have been doing this, and hopefully with many successes where you're saying like, I gained a little step inward towards a skill, and therefore I have confidence, because confidence comes from that, exposing yourself to something difficult, and you succeeded, you came out positive on the other side. um, that is really making for a good life. And when you're an adult, you're responsible to give yourself those challenges, and it's important that we keep it that way.
Yeah,
don't play
and
don't play too, don't play too safe. That's kind of like the most devastating thing that you can do with your life, to just like play it safe and just like hoping for the eternal bliss.
yeah, and there is no other way than trial and error. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, there isn't. There's no sophisticated formula or it's just
No,
trial and error.
it's not linear. It's very iterative, and it is trial and error. And then sometimes you need to have a lot of trials on the same thing before you just like get it right.
Yeah,
And so be it. Enjoy the. I think like when we talked a little bit earlier here, I mentioned this. It's very important that you're not just like falling in love so much with your goals and with your accomplishments, but that you're falling in love with the journey to get there.
journey. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Well, and
That's
you and
what
I,
I try.
you and I are both kind of like immigrants here to the United States, right? And so
Yeah,
we had made choices in our life, So uh, I'm American because I want to be American. There's a lot of people who are leaving right now because they don't want to be Americans, and
yeah,
everyone each their own, right? But that is a choice that you're making that has consequences too, because if you're one thing, then maybe you're not the other thing anymore, and you're embracing some new opportunities, but also closing some other doors. And uh, you need to understand that in life, that there's trade-offs and jeopardies, and especially when it comes to sacrifices. The bigger the sacrifice you give towards whatever you're pursuing, the more valuable your pursuit becomes.
yeah. The reward, indeed. What comes easy, we don't value as humans.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Wow, that's Bjorn. Bjorn. Okay, Bjorn, I will squeeze your brilliant mind now. That's the part that I do. I make some questions and I want to see
Sure.
where your mind goes, right? So imagine this scenario. It's an impossible mission, I tell. Bjorn, you have 1 year, okay? 1 year to accomplish and achieve everything you have built so far in your life. What would you do? How would you do it?
One year to accomplish what I have accomplished so far.
Yeah,
I would just like get very, very good in understanding AI, find some good mentors and coaches, and just like put my best foot forward here. I don't know whether I have startup money or not. You didn't mention that. I'm assuming I have some, and would just like invest in some education. I think that's always the best education that you can have, and then as soon as possible turn that into action that I get paid for.
No, I think it's awesome. Yeah, everything that we are facing now, you would just condense and go for it. Yeah,
Yes, take action
love it.
earlier. Don't play it
Yeah.
safe.
Oh yeah, action, execution, execution. That's it. That's the name of the game. I agree. That's what I've been learning as well. Wow, you might have a brilliant ideas, but the execution is the key.
Yeah, if you wait for perfection, it's never happening.
Yeah, no, no. And what success looks like to you?
I think fulfillment. It's just like being happy with how I used my day, seeing kind of like my loved ones succeeding around me. Especially my son. That's very, very important to me. That I see like that he's able to learn and becoming more of himself. And for me, just I mean, there's definitely some joys in my life, whether it's traveling and then good food and health and those kind of things. That definitely I think like a big part of success if you're able to maintain that well. But success also means like I tried a lot of different things, and I've been participating in a variety of things, some with success, some without, as I mentioned before, and I do not want to get married just to the outcome, but just like the attempt to do different difficult things here. I think like that is success in itself.
So fulfillment is happiness to you.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
uh, what would you put in a billboard? Bjorn Meisner, what would you put in a billboard? What message? Whatever.
Or kind of like a purpose statement or a billboard that I look at. No, something to
It's your
promote
billboard.
myself.
One
It's my
message you have
billboard.
to send to everyone.
Oh God, I always say like I mean Nike already stole the "Just Do It," which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
But try harder is probably another good one. Or just something action oriented. It's a yeah, something action oriented, and what's in between the lines here is what I don't mention. Don't overthink it.
Mm,
I do not want to put a negative message out there, so it will not be on that billboard, but that's behind that too. Don't overthink it. Do something.
yes. Yeah. Again, it's simple. It's simple like try and error. It's simple. Just do it. Yeah.
I mentioned this to you in another conversation here too. The "Just Do It" tagline from Nike. I remember when Nike came first on the horizon back in Germany, and you remember what the tagline was initially
No.
for Nike? It was "There is no finish line." So it was a runner's brand, right? So the running shoes mostly, and the idea of there's no finish line, that you're constantly, you gotta keep going. There's just like you keep running, and there's really a lot of truth towards that. You just like should never get married to the idea that there comes a point where you do not have to do anything anymore. Given it's a marketing ploy, right? So "Just Do It" is definitely the stronger tagline because it's more positive, but just there's no finish line. There's a lot of truth and a lot of philosophy behind that I can agree with.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there is this Netflix documentary about it. I think I saw it. And I think they got it. They bought it for peanuts, right? The logo or the slogan from someone. I don't recall. Sorry, but yeah, I
Yeah,
know there is. Good.
that's when you're small, you sometimes do not have to pay the big prices. It's not a
Yeah.
bad thing.
Well, uh, I'd like your recommendations for books or whatever you use to, like you said, you keep learning. Any recommendation?
Oh my God! I mean, Which topic? Business, self development? What are you thinking about?
What you think is worth it?
I think, like, in order to understand your mind very well, Rob Dial has a book that's called Level Up. I like that quite a lot. I think Tony Robbins' Unlimited Power is definitely a good book. When it comes to leadership, John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is a fantastic read. For guys, I think like the Way of the Superior Man is a fantastic read. I mean, I'm reading a lot. I was just like going through my audiobooks this morning and said like, oh man, it's just like you're a junkie. But and I have as many paper books as well. But those four would stand out. I think like you have a lot to do when you're reading just through those.
Yeah. No, true.
The
True.
most important thing that I can recommend for any reader is just like not just like being done with a book, but study it. Sometimes I read and listen to books multiple times, because I'm not catching everything the first time, and sometimes what sleep is helping your brain to just like marinate in all the stuff that it has consumed throughout the day and make sense of it. And sometimes when you revisit the same content with that updated operating system here, you're getting some additional value out of it. So if there's a real good book, chances are I've read it more than once.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, I am not. I'm reading. I'm reading this year more than ever. I can tell you that. But I'm not a speed reader, and I definitely won't read the same book more than one time like you. But what I
Yeah,
do is I now I carefully use some highlighters and make some notes and put some, those stickers that pop out the book. That's the way I'm doing now, and I think that's really good.
I think like if you can engage with the content, especially in the self-development field, there's very often exercises in and actually do them instead of just like listening through them with audiobooks. The danger is always there that you just like plowing through it. But do engage with the book, just as you said, highlighters, bookmarking things. Sometimes I have always my journals. When I start a new journal, I put some of my favorite quotes in there because I know I will use them, and write some things from the book right in there, handwritten. There's a part of writing it down helps me to remember it better too. And so I think like the engagement with the literature that you're having it in front of you instead of just consuming is really, really important to get the most out of it.
Yeah, yeah. I look for the golden nuggets of each book, right?
Yeah. And then, I mean, again, too, for many of your listeners here, they might not be liking reading too much. So like take on the challenge. But if it's not your thing, there's things like Blinkist out now too, who just like condense the books really to the essential messages, and then you can basically listen to that for 15 minutes and don't have to go through the 290 pages. So there's ways to get good content.
Yes, yes, true. I was doing that. I was doing that. I give some time now. I have some books that I just bought and I listen. Mostly I listen. I have now two or three that I'm reading, and I also change. I don't. I like to change topics. So that's what I'm doing now. I don't finish one book and go to the other. I feel like reading this one or listening to this one, and so I keep changing.
Right, right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Keeps you flexible upstairs there.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. Any last messages, thoughts, whatever you want to
No, this
share?
No, I think this has been a great conversation. Thanks for having me here, and yeah, I hope we're doing this again at some point of time. You let me know if you have any more questions. Otherwise, I give you the honor to say the last words.
No, I think it was amazing, beyond what I expected. I knew that I would love to have you here and this deliver this great content. That there's no other way. That's why I'm doing this. There,
You know,
you as my other guests, it's amazing people that have that amazing soul and content, and yeah, it's brilliant. So I thank you.
no, thank you very much. Keep doing what you're doing. It's just like so important that we guys talk, and that we're keeping the conversations alive and don't leave everything up to AI, talking to AI and so on. We're
Yeah,
humans. This is
no,
fantastic stuff.
indeed. Thanks a lot. We will definitely do this again.
Appreciate it. You take care.
Thanks, Bjorn. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.